Hi everyone, Cassie here from Primrose Dawn, and today I'm going to show you two methods for sewing an enclosed gusset on panties. An enclosed gusset is made out of two layers, the self layer and the lining layer. And an enclosed gusset has the seam allowance enclosed on both ends, and we will be using the burrito method for sewing the gussets. So let's get started. The first method I'm going to show you is the method that I use in my daisy brief pattern. It involves a couple of extra steps, but if you've never done the burrito method, I think it's a little clearer than trying to sew all the gusset layers together at the same time. So to begin, you're going to need your front, and you're going to need your gusset piece that's cut from the main fabric. And you're going to put them right sides together at the gusset seam, and you're going to pin just a few pins. I like to use the satin pins on knits because they're thinner. They're a little easier to get through the knit fabrics. Okay, so now it's pinned. Let's go to the machine. Now we're just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam using a regular straight stitch. Take out the pins as you go. Don't run over pins. I'm using a contrasting thread so you can see what I'm doing. Of course, you'll want to use regular thread that blends in with your fabrics. Okay, so there's our 1/4 inch seam. Now, as you can see, we have the front sewn to the gusset. Now we're going to turn it around, and we're going to get the back piece. And with right sides together, we're going to pin the other side of the gusset to the back. It's kind of hard to grab this fabric. This is a rayon spandex. Very nice to wear, but I find it a little hard to sew with sometimes just because it's so drapey. Okay. Now we got a few pins in there. Let's go to the machine. Okay, now we're going to sew another 1/4 inch seam. Oops, getting off track already. You might notice that I don't backstitch. This particular machine I'm sewing on doesn't seem to like to backstitch on knits. I just end up with a big knot. Kind of gets sucked down into the feed dogs. I don't really know how to fix that. If you have any tips, I'd like to hear. I've tried my walking foot, and the same thing just happens. There we go. Okay, now that seam is sewn. Let's go back to the table. Okay, so we've got the front, the gusset, and the back. Now here's where the burrito part comes in. You want to roll the front and back pieces, the right side facing up, towards the center until you can see the seam allowance for the gusset. And I guess they call it a burrito because you have to roll up the tortilla, right? Okay, so now we can see the back seam. Oh, it looks like my thread got stuck in there. Now, you'll want your gusset lining piece, and I know it's kind of hard for you to see here. This is the right side here. You want to have right side down. We're going to put right sides together for the gusset. And you're going to pin it. Now I like to pin from this side. Oops. You'll want to kind of pin backwards. Oh, see, I already grabbed my bigger pins than the satin pins. And I just use a couple of pins in here. You can pin both edges. We're going to pin from this side, but we're actually going to sew from the other side. And we're going to go right on top of the stitching that we already made for the first 2 layers. We're just going to be adding on the lining layer of the gusset. Oops. Okay, let's go to the machine. Okay, so here's where we pinned. Now I'm just going to flip this over. Oops. And you can see where we already stitched. So we're just going to stitch right over that very carefully, remembering to remove the pins. I stick the heads facing outward so I can see them as I'm going. Okay, sink my needle down. Oh, and look. You just have to make sure all the edges are lined up nicely. Do the best that you can. Oops. Okay. Take out that pin. Let's go. Try to just sew right along where you sewed before. Take out your pin. Usually use the last pin to guide me right to the edge here. Okay. Now we're going to sew the other side. Remember to take out your pins. Oops. Get the edges nice and straight. Oop, just a little bit off there. Okay, let's take a look. Now, in my pattern, I have instructions to grade this seam allowance here because it's a little bit bulky. So I'm going to take a sharp pair of scissors, and I'm just going to try to trim just this one layer here. Cut it down close to the stitching. You can see I didn't do that great of a job sewing right over my first set of stitching. Oops, it's kind of hard to do with the camera in the way. I do a better job when I'm just doing it for myself. This doesn't have to be perfect, you're just reducing the bulk. And I'm going to cut a little bit off the other side too. You could also use your serger here, if you have a serger. Okay, I'll do the other side later. I just want to show you the burrito part. So now we just pull the front and the back from one side to get it right side out again. Okay, so there's the front and the back, and this is the inside. You want to press this a little bit. Oops. Make sure all the edges are nicely aligned there. And you can see, you can't see any of the seam allowances. They're hidden in the seams here. Okay, now I'm going to show you the second method for sewing the enclosed gusset. This is also the burrito method, but we're going to be sewing both gusset layers to the front and back of the panty at the same time. So once you get the hang of sewing an enclosed gusset with the previous method that I showed you, you could probably try to do this. This one's a little bit faster. You only sew 2 steams instead of 4. So I'm working with the front here. So we're gonna, oops, not throw the pieces on the table. I'm gonna stick a couple pins in of just these 2 layers. I guess let's start in the center. And I'm gonna stick the heads of the pins outwards again so I can readjust when I add on the other layer of the gusset. Okay, flip it over. Okay, this is the right side of the lining. We want the right side, oops, I'll show you. The right side of the lining facing the right side of the gusset. And the front is sandwiched in the middle. I'm going to redo my pins here. Let's take another one, try to do a little bit better job of matching. Might add a few more pins in here. I don't like to use lots of pins while I'm sewing. See, I didn't match that very well. You're matching a convex and a concave curve here. You have to be careful to get the edges aligned just right. Oh, and look, a bent pin. Throw away bent pins. Life's too short for bent pins. Okay, let's go to the machine. Okay, and now we're going to sew our 1/4 inch seam. Just want to make sure my layers are still aligned here at the edge. If you have a slippery fabric that you're working with, this might be a little challenging to get all 3 layers aligned. Let's see here. Oh yeah, that's still okay. There we go, just right to the edge. Okay. So here's what we have. If you want to open out the gusset layers, we have the front with the gusset attached on both sides. And now I'm going to attach the back. So first I'm just going to take only the gusset cut from the silph fabric in my back. Here, let's do it like this. Few pins in it. Looks like I forgot to cut the notches. Just match the edges first. And one in the middle. Okay. Let's flip this over. I want to be sure you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so here's the burrito part. I have the front here and the back. I'm rolling them together. So this is the right side of the gusset. This is the gusset lining. The right side of the gusset lining is facing the right side of the gusset here. And we're going to repin so that all the edges match. Oh, look, the bent pin again. Why didn't I throw that away? Maybe one more pin. Okay, let's go to the machine. Okay, let's sew our 1/4 inch seam. Oops. Yeah, that got a little too close to the edge here. Might have to go back and redo that. The next step would be to grade the seam allowance. I'm not going to do that here because I already showed you in the first method. But I will show you the magic of the burrito method. So I'm just pulling both the front and the back out from the side, turned it out, and see, there we have it, the enclosed seams. So that's the other method for sewing an enclosed gusset. Try them both out, see which one works for you, and leave your questions and comments below. Thank you. Bye for now.